All right, cool.
Sure can.
All right, so let's get into it. So hello and welcome to the New York Augmented Reality Meetup. It's good to not see so many familiar faces. Unfortunately, we had to block out the video feed today due to some spam in past events, but thank you for joining New York Augmented Reality. Let's see what we got here. We have a great event tonight for you, and Barry and I worked hard on organizing it. So we'll start out with, I'll do a quick introduction, and we have some special announcements, and then we have presentations from Niantic, Leia, Bob Bark, and then Kevin Yu and Joey Down from WearWorks. So we'll move right into it. First, I want to thank Barry Seff, who is not here right now. But nevertheless, thank you, Barry, for your work in the meetup. I can't do it without you. So thank you, Barry. It's really nice to have your help and involvement. Unfortunately, due to some spam, we had to disable features in the meetups, including the ability to unmute yourself, share your screen. You cannot enable video, unfortunately, and I also hid profile pictures, and yeah, I'm just trying to take the proper precautions to make sure this is a safe meetup tonight for everyone. News, very brief. Hexa raised about $20 million, and Vuzix raised $100 million valuing their HUD heads-up display for automobiles. They raised $100 million valuing their company at $500 million, and then Luma AI, a Nerf 3D scanning platform, raised $20 million. Google Glass, unfortunately, ended its life this past month. However, Xiaomi and Roku unveiled new headsets, and then Snap also released a new business platform abbreviated as Aries, and I don't have the exact abbreviation noted down, but you could just Google Snap Aries and you'll find out more. It can help businesses utilize Snap's technology to implement augmented reality. Simply. And now, without further ado, I have Josh Elster here, the author of the fantastic book, which I have somewhere here in my office, Going the Distance with Babylon JS.
That's awesome. Hi. So last time I was before you guys, I think was about 7 or so months ago. It was a little bit before the book launched, and I wanted to give a quick update on how it's been going. I'll share my screen real quickly here so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit. So if you go to pact.link/Josh, I'll put it into the chat. This will take you to the page here, and I'm not trying to sell my book here. I just want to show you what it's all about here. So Babylon JS is a web GPU, WebGL type of framework that you can use to easily build a website that incorporates 3D aspects. You can incorporate VR and AR type things with WebXR and so much more. So in the interest of time and not taking too much time off of that, I also wanted to take a little bit to talk about the next release of Babylon JS, which is coming up, let's see here, in the next month or so. And the forums have a great showcase here. We've asked, or I should say the team has asked for submissions from the community, and there's hundreds of people who have really submitted a lot of amazing work here. I want to call out a couple of these ones here. For example, there's a top-down 3D RPG that a folk is doing that's a real-time multiplayer game, just done all in the browser in JavaScript. Another guy has done a superhero comic store where you can use VR or AR to browse through a comic book collection and actually, I believe, read through them too. So some really neat stuff that people are doing with Babylon JS these days. And if you're interested in learning more about it, feel free to contact me. I'll stick around after the meetup. And of course, if you want to check out my book, feel free to do so. I never mind that. Also, feel free to drop any questions on the forum. If you want to drop by there, it's just forum.babylonjs.com. All right, I think that's I think I got that in as quick as I could.
That was great. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Next up, and Mario, I have a screen for you, although my computer's acting a little slow, so it might be the most efficient to have you go right for it. So excited to have Mario Castellano here. the creator of Mystery on Main Street, to pitch with the group and hear your thoughts and answer your questions about his latest concept as an entrepreneur, Mystery on Main Street. Thank you, Mario, for joining. You're on mute, sorry. Okay.
Oops, let's change that. Sorry.
No, that was my bad.
You
Go
can
ahead.
you can see the screen.
Yeah, looks good.
Good, good. So thank you again, number one, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and everyone here. I've been involved with augmented reality for a number of years. I co-founded an augmented reality company, and I've left that to found my own company called Mystery on Main Street. So without further ado, I'll get into it. Mystery on Main Street is on a mission to bring business back to the locals. We want to change this to this. There's a myth that e-commerce is the only way for the future, and that is a myth. Although monkeypox and COVID pandemics and the economy has hit a lot of these retailers and merchants very hard, 87%, that's a very important number, 87% of purchases are made at physical stores as opposed to 13% online. That's a global figure. We like to go buying, we like to go shopping, no matter what you hear. Here in the US alone, there are over 2 million merchants. That includes restaurants, cafes, walk-in shops, stores and such. Doesn't include the car dealers and every other type of walk-in business that you might see. This is how others solve the problem of trying to get people into these stores. Valpak, the weekly flyers that you receive, Facebook, Google Ads. Some people go with radio or television broadcasting, and we all know the corner sign spinner. This is how we plan to solve the problem, and I'm sorry, this is how we intend to solve this problem. We're going to bring customers into the merchants, eateries, and any walk-in business. We're going to offer them cash prizes, interactive gamification, the latest in technology, GPS, and other forms of technology that will bring people into these merchant stores. Little story, let me tell you a little bit about Mystery on Main Street. Mystery on Main Street is, as I started to say, it's a whole new method of bringing people back into buying local. You download the app onto your phone, a drop-down list tells you the local gameplay, and that gameplay is followed by a mystery story that we create. Sometimes it's fiction, sometimes it's not fiction, but you follow that mystery story and you get clues once you're inside the merchants. Again, as you enter the merchant, you tap on the app and an augmented reality character comes out. We'll ask you if you're here to solve the mystery. You say, yes, I am. And it'll give you a set of clues for you to pick from. And then it'll tell you, well, go look for that QR code. So as you're walking around this store or this cafe, looking at all the different things they have to offer, what are you going to do? Hopefully you're going to buy something until you find that QR code. So 5 minutes later, whether you find the QR code or not, the app opens up, giving you the opportunity to find out if your clue is correct or incorrect. The demographics are very simple. Everyone from 16 to 60 plays this game. It's not a kid's game. The way we're going to get the word out is through broadcast television, local publications, and also a window display. Every single participating merchant will have a window display that says the mystery is being played here. The fee for these merchants is only going to be $100. That's 1/8 page of a Facebook or Valpak ad, so it's very inexpensive. 5%. That's a very important number as well. Our projected first year revenue, we expect $12 million, and that's that's half of 1% of just the US market. We're a pre-rev, we're a startup, we're currently seeking investment. So if anyone here is interested in investment and what we believe is a sure thing, and we have the numbers to prove it, the data will prove it, and data is really a big part of what we're doing. I'd love to talk to you. Brick and mortar retail is ready for this. If you just look at the numbers, you look at
2 minutes.
what's going on, and you'll agree. This is our founding team. Fellow New Yorker is Wendy Best, but we have a very professional team with a gaming background and professional background, and we're here to serve. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Mary. I have a question that was sent in. What software?
Pardon?
Sorry, I have a question that was sent in. What software platform do you intend to utilize to build the Mystery on Main Street?
I'm not the tech. I'm sorry. I can answer that question for you. If that individual would like to put their information in the chat, I'll be more than glad to answer that question for you at another time.
And the second question is, are there any specific retailers or products that your platform is mostly geared to, like a supermarket or no?
No, it's open to any walk-in sort of business. It could be a supermarket, a cafe, a restaurant, a car dealer, a laundromat, a museum, event centers, theater, anything where it has walk-in traffic business.
Okay, awesome. Put your email if you can. You're the host in the.
I'm going to do that. Yeah.
We'll have folks, and if you have a LinkedIn, however you prefer being contacted, put it in the chat. And we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And you're always welcome to join again as the product continues to develop and share it with the group. We liked having you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like having me here as well.
Thank you. Hopefully stick around for the presentations. And with that being said, my computer's being a little spotty. I have some slides here, but I'll just go straight into the presentations. Excited to have incredible speakers with us tonight. Those who are bringing what was once impossible and making it a reality. First, we are honored to have Gabriel here with us from Niantic. Joe's been working in the VR and AR industry since 2015 across his own startups, The Void, Magic Leap, Tilt 5, and now Niantic, cultivating a unique blend of industry experience in location-based VR esports, 360 VR production, and developer relations. When he's not working, he's usually playing D&D with his kids, reading fantasy and sci-fi books, and playing video games. Thank you, Joe, for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Thanks everybody for having me here. Real quick shout out, just everybody taking time out of their work day or on the tail end after work is already closed up to just tune in and hang out for a bit. Really appreciate it. Josh, man, thanks for the quick intro on Babylon JS. I'm a huge fan, man. I love
that's great to hear.
Seeing your team's work, like with especially on HoloLens, like being able to like use the web for really cool visualizations, and just seeing those game examples are awesome.
And then
what
the community's built is pretty amazing.
That's wild, man. Yeah, I just want to keep seeing it like become more and more of a standard tool for devs to play with. Yeah, and Mario, I love that you're getting into like the e-commerce side of like connecting consumers with brick and mortar as well. I mean, the last couple of years have been pretty crappy for a couple reasons, but one of them being that a lot of our humanity was kind of like, stripped away and taken in terms of our ability to connect with our community and, the comforts, the creature comforts that we grow used to. And then now that it's coming back and everything is opening up, being able to have additional tools for store owners and consumers to connect in new ways is it's a powerful thing that you're doing, man. So get this man some money, let's see that startup take off, man, and best wishes to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's
yeah, and today I have a few things that I'll be sharing. I'm going to be giving kind of like a brief kind of like background on Niantic for those who may not be familiar, kind of like some fun news and updates of things we're doing, and then jumping over into specific like technologies that I get to work with in different developers and use cases and productions that I'm supporting. All right, so we're going to give this a go. All right, and Andy, you let me know if like visuals are ever not showing up for any reason. All right. Okay. So this is the Niantic homepage, guys. Niantic is known for a few things, but one of the biggest things is Pokemon Go. That was before my time at Niantic. But a fun bit of history that some of you may not know is how Niantic got that start with Pokemon Go. There were an internal like group at Google at the time working on Google Earth, Google Maps. They had a field trips application that they'd done for kind of like a Google Cardboard style of like tours that teachers could do with a map. It's a mapping company. And they put out an April Fool's video where hikers and explorers were running around and catching Pokemon like with their mobile phones, and people freaked out. And so did the Pokemon company, so much so that they said, we have to make this a real thing. It was an April Fool's video. So with that, Niantic spun out of Google with Google's blessing. Google became a co-investor together with the Pokemon company and created Pokemon Go. Niantic's second game, the first game that they came out with was Ingress and then Ingress Prime. So kind of like at the core of this gameplay was Niantic and maps. So I'd say like the first thing to remember when thinking about Niantic is like we're a map company that makes games. And that helps kind of the product maintain like a cool perspective and a unique like understanding of like where we're headed, and then some of the features and abilities that we're trying to bring to AR developers out there. Cool. Okay, so next kind of like bulletin point here is one of our upcoming new games called Peridot. This is on May 9th. I think we slow rolled this one out in Singapore, Malaysia, and Norway for kind of our soft launch process, and now we're releasing it globally May 9th. And the unique thing about this game I like to tell people about is this is Niantic's first like AR game. This is a straight AR game. Sometimes we kind of it's easy to hold up Pokemon Go as like this like amazing example of augmented reality gaming. It's really not. You know, it's a map-based game for sure, and it's a community-based game that has like encouraged billions of people to walk billions of kilometers, and that's super powerful. But it's not quite the use case, you know, the standout use case for augmented reality that you might be like wanting so much. So this game Peridot is coming out in May, and that's gonna, I think, teach us a lot about just like reception, user behaviors, what sticks, what doesn't, you know. Something I've been really impressed with during my time in Niantic, I've been here for just over a year, is like how excited we are for new technologies and just like understanding what makes something stick. We have amazing like gameplay engineers and developers and designers on our team really looking at just like the metrics of gameplay and then how to make it fun, how to have this kind of like digestible play session. You know, these aren't PC games, these aren't console games, these are mobile games that are meant to be played while you're walking. Something cool I can tell you about Peridot is that it actually like it takes people from inside their home to outside their home and then back again. And that's a unique perspective. Sometimes we kind of think of AR as like it's either indoor or outdoor, but as humans, we're, you know, our space changes quite frequently, multiple times throughout the day. And so having an app that kind of understands that natural human behavior, I think is an important way, especially for designers and developers in this group here, about how you perceive and how you kind of design your user experience. Next cool update is this one, NBA All World. Niantic, we teamed up with the NBA to kind of create a map-based kind of basketball game that's kind of like a King of the Hill, where you go to an actual like local basketball court in your neighborhood, and then you get to challenge like an NBA pro that's in the game to kind of a shootout. And then based on how well you do, then you can kind of like get specific merch connected with that player. And it's kind of, I mean, especially from an NBA player perspective or like business development, it's a really interesting business model, the way I like to look at it. I think every sport would love to have like a cool, I mean, we have 2K, you know, we got FIFA, but like how do you do something specific with really unique merch where every player has their own kind of, you know, brands that they're working with in specific merch lines. That's kind of what the game is kind of trying to bring out and get into like the culture of basketball in a unique map-based way. And then next kind of like fun, I guess, like news thing that some of you may have heard or may have seen is that Niantic and Qualcomm announced a deal, but not a deal so much as Niantic has commissioned Qualcomm to work on a reference design for an augmented reality outdoor use case headset. Qualcomm then kind of like followed up with an update. I think it was in November with kind of this new, what the new reference design looks like. And it looks pretty dope. And they had some cool video of people like outdoor using it. And the unique thing about this that was announced during the Qualcomm Summit is that this is running on the Qualcomm Snapdragon Spaces SDK. And then the announcement is that Niantic's visual positioning system, our kind of location services, will be coming later this year to kind of work together with this. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it. Qualcomm powered AR headsets. Qualcomm chipsets are in like so many different devices, and Niantic looking at that through a strategic perspective. How can we get Niantic powered projects and productions and games across all these different headsets? So this is kind of Niantic's way, not necessarily to be stepping into a commercial like hardware space, but in research and understanding and making sure that we are like prepped and ready for when all the devices are coming out. Want to be best friends with all the manufacturers out there, so anyone can play Pokemon Go and other Niantic games once those are going outside. Okay, so I am moving quick. Just a second. I have, oh, there we go. I got to hide my panel real quick. Hide. Hold on. There we go. Okay, ready to dive in kind of like the technology side now. Okay, so I work specifically, Niantic kind of has a few large like teams, and one of them specifically is called Lightship. Lightship is what we call our SDK, the tools for developers that we make for our own first-party games. We've now like made available for third-party developers to build their own location-based, map-based augmented reality games with. That's our Lightship SDK. This does a couple things really well. And quick triple check, Andy, thumbs up, we're good for audio? Make sure I'm not talking to myself for the next like 5 minutes. All right, cool. Okay, so Lightship SDK, the goal is to really build the real world metaverse is kind of what we call it. And it's based on a few core pillars of augmented reality. And what that is real-time mapping, multiplayer, something we call semantic segmentation, and then the visual positioning system. I'm going to go into each of these real briefly. The real-time mapping, this from the outside kind of feels like this is like table stakes augmented reality. Be able to correctly kind of map, understand, and mesh like my vertical and horizontal planes for content placement. I've talked to multiple developers that like they don't use our map services, they don't use the more advanced stuff, but they freaking love like just the meshing. The meshing in this works fantastic. And out of the box, a few reasons why developers love the Niantic meshing. You know, with ARKit, the LiDAR support for ARKit is pretty great. But if you have a user base you're trying to work with that don't have LiDAR supported phones, then they're kind of excluded from your experience. So what's nice about the Niantic meshing is that as a developer, I can create an app with a LiDAR powered device for testing and for development, but my end users are not required to have LiDAR devices in order to enjoy augmented reality. So it's a cross-platform kind of way for many more device support to access AR. And that's just, you know, that's just through using the pass-through camera frames that you're able to get kind of like that accurate meshing. The next kind of cool thing is multiplayer. So anyone that's developed multiplayer, you know, it's a beast, right? It's probably like the hardest bit of development that you're going to be doing. We provide what we call shared AR. That's Niantic's kind of native multiplayer sessioning solution. We don't require it for Niantic games. Like I work with a lot of devs that are using their own version of Photon, their own kind of like Firebase, you know, multiplayer stack. But then we also have shared AR here. Shared AR, the way to think about it is like, I want 5 people in a group to experience the thing. It's co-location, so my device knows where your device is at. And then both of our devices know where the shared digital content is at any given time. That's really tricky stuff. So we're constantly kind of improving and doing that. We get requests a lot like, I want to do a big raid, you know, World of Warcraft style, Destiny 2 style. I want like 100 people to go attack a mega boss in the middle of the city type of direction. Right now, we can't have like 100 people in the same session, but you can time it in such a way that you have 25 player sessions, you know, all going to a public place at the same time. And that actually works for most social dynamics to have like your friends or your family in a smaller group. And that just makes for like better latency and performance decisions there. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is, and this one's kind of a mouthful, semantic segmentation. This is a fancy way for us to say like scene understanding, that your camera frames know the difference, kind of like object recognition, but it's scene recognition. It knows that this is the difference between the blue of the sky and the dark blue of the mountains versus like a building that's there. This knows there's a building or a tree, grass, water, concrete. We have some new experimental channels that are like your TV or desktop monitor, loungeables like for couches and chairs, even like pet tracking for cats and dogs. We have person segmentation that tracks like your head, body, as well as clothing. And it really is, I mean, something to think about. Snap is fantastic for like the selfie camera type of experience. And then Niantic is really focusing on like the back-facing camera type of tracking and augmented reality experience. So segmentation is pretty powerful. Kaiju's in the city, big mega beasts, Godzilla's walking around, you know, your camera is gonna know this is the sky, this is the building. If you're passing behind a tree, then it's gonna be able to accurately occlude your content as you're kind of moving about your space, and it does that dynamically. All right, and the next big piece we're gonna be looking at is called our VPS, or our visual positioning system. And the way I like to talk about this is we kind of come from a common frame of reference with GPS. GPS is our latitude, longitude coordinates that like drive all of our maps. Anytime I'm driving around Seattle, you know, I have my map on nonstop. You've experienced this likely as you're walking around a city, that you experience this kind of like drift that can happen as you're walking around also. VPS is unique in that developers are using their LiDAR cameras to scan the actual volumetric data around a common object so that you can localize against this in a super accurate way in its persistent content. Real quick, Andy, you said 2 minutes. Was that just making sure?
Correct.
Gotcha, man. Okay, cool. Remembering again that Niantic is a map company that makes games. We're lighting up tens and hundreds of thousands of these locations for developers to access and then publish their content to. This is exciting because, you know, taking the best of, say, Ingress, Pokemon Go, and our other maps-based games, where we have kind of these like community hubs and hotspots across the globe, you have access to these data points now to remotely publish and distribute your own content across these channels. Niantic's doing a lot, you know. It's a fast-moving company, but we really have a really cool kind of laser focus on just what are games, how do we use AR, how do we get people to move about their space, go from one location to another, and do that, you know, in an impactful way. It's all about positivity and inspiring people to explore the world together. I love what I get to do at Niantic, and I guess my invitation here is like, if anyone has any other questions, like, bring them here, reach out to me afterwards. I'd love to hear if you have projects that you're working on. We've done hackathons and jams in Brooklyn, and are always trying to just find other devs that are doing cool stuff and help support you guys along the way. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Joe. Great having you. Some questions to be passed along. What part of the ARDK is most important for augmented reality realism?
What part is, okay, that's a great question. If we're talking like visual fidelity, that's always going to be a big challenge on your mobile chipset. So sometimes, sorry, my dog, developers will be looking at either web implementation with WebAR and eighth wall, or they'll be looking at Lightship ARDK. So for visual fidelity and realism, ARDK for the Unity implementation is going to be your best bet. Unity is going to do most of the heavy lifting as far as your graphics, using URP to make sure that it's like feeling good on your mobile devices.
Awesome. How advanced do you need to be to get started with ARDK?
That's a great question. I mean, I would definitely say intermediate is kind of like a good place where you'll start feeling really comfortable. We do have a lot of content materials, guides and templates is what we call it, for kind of more like beginner entry level Unity developers. Often what I recommend is like just taking like a period to just go through. If you're like brand new to Unity, then developing like AR with the ARDK, it will be a challenge, especially if you're like ambitious, you know, and wanting to do multiplayer stuff. Step one, like go through Unity's like free learn platform and just like take a month and just like learn Unity basics. Like don't even worry about AR, just learn Unity. And then after you kind of have this like, you know, foundation built of just building games, how the system works, then you're gonna have a lot more fun jumping in ARDK.
Is there support for Unreal Engine as well?
Not yet. No, that's a great question. Definitely like we rolled out with the Unity implementation of Lightship first. And we're getting into this comfortable place now that it's been out for a little over a year and a half, where we're like opening up flexibility and finding ways for other pipelines to be in frameworks to be supported. So not quite yet, but stay tuned.
Awesome. And I have one more question. Do you have any internal features that are being used for the games? There's actually two more, but this one, do you have any internal features that are being used for the Niantic games that is publicly released in the ARDK, or is it kind of all like out there?
That's a great question. I'd say like all of the like foundational capabilities for our internal games are now exposed like for third-party developers to jump into. So for example, one of the super fresh new features it's actually like really unique to Ingress is your ability to scan and like submit new locations to the shared map. There's not a lot of other Niantic games that include that feature. We call that our scanning framework. We acquired a company called Scaniverse that uses that. We put that into Ingress so that players can go around. This is a cool community spot. You know, they submit a picture and a scan, and then it goes into our database, and we do some safety checks, and then we green light it as a new kind of like public way spot. This capability is now available for developers to use on their own. We do have a few things that are still like mostly for internal use. One simple one we call Adventure Sync, but we're finding ways to kind of make that public. This is in like Pokemon Go, where even when your app is not open, you can still opt in to track your steps so that you can like incubate or like grow your Pokemon XP. How can I do that in a way, you know, for third-party development teams that like, you know, Mario, you're talking about ways to gamify e-commerce and brick and mortar. You know, like I want to know, I don't want to have to whip my phone out. I just want my phone to notify me, hey, you're actually like 20 feet away, you know, from this cool bodega that has a deal going on. That's the kind of thing that Adventure Sync could bring to AR developers as well.
Awesome. And really quickly, because we got to move on, but what about Campfire? Let's go. What's going on?
I'm so glad you asked, man. No, that's cool. You'll hear some updates more this year for sure. The big idea around Campfire, if you're not familiar with this, is kind of a new way of discovering distribution for Niantic powered applications. We understand there's a lot of risk and just challenge and like, hey, I'm gonna launch. I think there's like 3,000 apps per day, like in the Google Play Store, 12 or 1,300 are launched per day in the iOS store. How can I improve my visibility with that? Campfire is a way where any app that's built, you know, using Lightship, specifically Lightship ARDK, you have these like this global shared map of like AR experiences. Campfire is a way for you to visualize this. Think of it like an augmented reality version of like Yelp, you know, where you can see around you, here's all the AR content that's curated and powered by Niantic Lightship.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds really great. Okay, looking forward. Thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Man. Marlon, woo, take it away, dude. Yeah.
What's up, Marlon? Thank you for joining us from Leia, where Marlon is the social and community lead there. And he is developing the LoomPad 2 device, which uses AI, integrates augmented reality, which we hope to learn more about tonight, computer vision, nanotechnology, to achieve immersive 3D without special eyewear on any app, video, or image. We're excited to learn more about the optic technology that your and the augmented reality software features that your company is leveraging. So thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much. And great job, Joe. I always appreciate hearing all of your updates. Thanks so much. And thanks, Andy, for the introduction. Yeah, so we're Leia Inc. We are creating LoomPad 2, which is about to launch, about to start shipping next month. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some visuals here. I'll just kind of caveat by saying that as far as what's possible within the realm of AR with our device, this is something that I think is still very much evolving as our developer community begins to expand, and certainly our SDKs grow as well. So very quickly, LoomPad 2. LoomPad 2 is powered by two really important things. One is a special backlight. So a lot of people will say, oh, this is kind of like the 3DS, or they might compare it to other devices out in the market. The unique thing about the Leia technology is that it uses what's called a diffractive light field backlight, which is basically microscopic etchings on a very, very thin layer inside of the device that manipulates light at nanoscale so that your eyes see it in 3D. The other part of our experience, I'd say, is that we utilize front head tracking, face tracking in real time to give you like a smooth parallax and to keep that view always in front of you. And so, basically this gives you really, really high resolution, smooth parallax 3D on the device. Kind of going back here a little bit. So as far as the AI goes, we utilize it a few different ways. One is to track your head and keep that smooth 3D view going, but also to convert any 2D content to 3D. And so some of the things that we've seen with the AR community, for example, being able to take a lot of the social videos that you see creators making with AR effects, being able to play those back in 3D. That's been a really fun use case for AR creators that are utilizing that mobile AR for social videos, for example. Because we can basically any open streaming shareable application, YouTube, TikTok, Vimeo, etc. You can just click share on that, and it'll go to 3D. We also have the ability to switch between 2D and 3D on local media. So if you have images and videos, things like that, you'll be able to kind of see them both in 2D and 3D. And that just kind of opens up to this like larger like ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, we're just about to launch this product, and really excited to do a lot of outreach and engagement with the developer community to see what experiences will be built. The device will come with a lot of standalone applications that include 3D chat powered by Zoom. So this is a first. And as AR developers, I would encourage you to begin to think about like how you would integrate AR into this eyewear free 3D experience, primarily because this is kind of what is yet to come. We also have the ability to ship apps, whether in the Google Play Store or whether they're in the Leia App Store. So again, we are really excited to work with the community and help get those ideas off the ground. Of course, you can monetize those as well. And another application that's really interesting here as well is Leia Dream, which is a generative AI application that we created in partnership with Stability AI. Stability AI are the folks responsible for Stable Diffusion. So this is the first device to ship with Stable Diffusion inside of the device. And so you are able to prompt different ideas, different visuals, and tap for 3D. And so once again, I'd love to just invite you to think about, okay, well then how would I then bring that, out into like an AR experience, which is, I'd say, still yet to be, really explored, but we're really excited about. This is all the stuff that comes with it. As far as the camera, you've got two sets. You've got a front facing, let me go to a camera section. I'm just gonna hop around to make the most of our time. So you do have two sets of cameras. You have a back camera that it's a 16 megapixel, 5K per eye stereoscopic camera. And you also have a stereoscopic camera on the front. So, with those two things, I'm really excited to see, what creators, do and make use of those components of the device. I'd say that one of the things we're also really excited about is like sixed off, like 3D on the device. So imagine, being able to like walk through a twin, like a twin of a particular place with all of the interior design and different assets you might create all in 3D. So that's something that we're very excited about seeing as well. As far as the capability, I'm gonna stop sharing here, but like one of the things that I mentioned the 3D six off experience. So AR Core and Depth API are supported, but currently, like the pass-through portion of it is sort of where we're at, and so we're definitely like excited for this to continue to develop and for creators in the space to as always, kind of hack away at the possibilities and what we could see and what we can do. But yeah, it's quite a robust device. It has some pretty awesome hardware on it, and I think that the 3D capability I think is going to be very interesting, because at this point, when we are using mobile AR, it's effectively still in 2D. So imagine being able to utilize your AR effects with a 3D view, with a truly 3D view. So anyhow, that's the LoomPad 2. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I run all our socials, so leiainc.com, Leia Inc. on any of those platforms, and you'll be reaching out to me.
Definitely put your information on the chat, so
Sure.
to reach out to you. That was awesome. Wanted to learn a little bit more about the Unity SDK that you have to offer. Could you speak about that?
Yeah, so Unity SDK, that's what's coming up first. We'll be working on Unreal later this year in the next couple of months. But the Unity SDK, is coming up. It's actually working on it this weekend, and you'll be able to utilize the front head tracking, which is really, really cool. Kind of just opens up to a wider field of view on the display. So if you look to the left, if you look to the right, up and down, you'll actually be looking, the image will change. And so you actually have like a much wider field of view than the size of the tablet, which is pretty exciting. You also have the ability to design experiences for users that give them the ability to choose like the level of depth, give them the ability to choose no depth. So some people, like, they're very sensitive for many reasons, including medical reasons. They might not, the 3D might not be a good experience for them. And so you'll be able to kind of give them the ability to turn that off and on. Currently we have shipping with this device is going to be an application called Mosaic, and it's tons of K through 12 instructional educational material that I wish I had when I was growing up. But this is definitely kind of opening up to like a new paradigm. You're going to kind of basically expect this from like a lot of other familiar devices, phones, laptops, computer monitors, etc. So 3D is really kind of like just an option here. It's something that you'll be able to utilize.
What's the tablet? Is it meant for like a consumer to just be hanging out like in their living room with the LoomPad, or is there like some like more enterprise use cases for that?
Definitely, yeah. There's some great enterprise use cases, and when folks ask that question, it's really it's like, what would you do with 3D? Now that you have it in your hands. Some of the enterprise use cases that we've seen, for example, are in the medical space. With like doctors and patients. Education, being able to really show you in 3D. Parts of your body, like what's going to happen throughout a procedure, but also for like education, or for a lot of high level consultants as well. If you're going to explain like a very complex, engineering concept to stakeholders, having the 3D effect here on a tablet doesn't require a headset. Studies have shown that it does reduce the cognitive load. But anything from fashion, design to engineering, medical, communication, what have you. So we're really excited about this device, and I think it really just kind of sets up sort of a new standard for what these familiar devices can do for us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. We have another question here. So, what are your thoughts on augmented reality headsets, given that this is a tablet?
Yeah, AR headsets. Whatever modality works for the user is wonderful. I myself have dabbled in audio only AR with the Bose SDK. Rest in peace. That was a fun time. I've worked with VR headsets. I've worked with mobile AR, and I think all of these different modalities are just wonderful, and they're great for different use cases and for different people and different bodies. So, I think what's most exciting to you and what you feel most strongly about is all good.
Awesome. Do you own any augmented reality equipment yourself? Just a personal question.
Just mobile AR. No headsets for me. Although these days I saw somebody that was giving away a HoloLens 1. Just clearing out the garage and just like killing me because I remember just wanting one of those so bad. So this space is just moving so quickly, and I'm always just excited to be at hackathons where you get first dibs on trying a lot of these different devices.
Nice. And one more question: does your company have different form factors of the screen, or is it specifically focused on tablet? Like, do you do like billboards, for example, like 3D holographic billboards?
Well, currently the LoonPad 2 is the device that is going to be shipping. Of course, they're always working on different form factors, in the lab. I'm sure, as we speak, there's conversations happening about like the next devices that they're going to be working on. But the benefit here of this technology is it's so lightweight. Leveraging the AI to do the 2D to 3D and the computer vision to keep you in 3D, and the lightweight, nature of the backlight, I think makes it so that you can see a watch, a phone, a laptop, and bigger or smaller devices, be 3D capable.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Marlon, for joining us tonight. It was good having you on and learning more about your product.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Cool.
So I did hear that question about that, and I'm thinking the question was about Blade Runner billboards, those holographic billboards in Blade Runner. I that's where my mind was going when I heard that question.
Word. Thank you, Josh. Okay, cool. Next up, excited to have Bob Bark here with us. Bob is creative director, serving brands and businesses in the mobile and XR space. And in 2023, Bob is now interested in how brands can build transformative experiences that make use of emerging tech like AR and AI. So I'm excited to learn more about your work. Bob, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. And it's such an honor to be on this panel with such a cool crew of folks. So it's nice to meet all of you guys. And I will share my screen and take you through a few slides.
Thank you.
So are you all able to see what I got going here? Cool. So yeah, as Andy mentioned, I'm Bob. I'm a creative director. For a long time, I was working in ad agencies in Chicago and Los Angeles, like Leo Burnett and Shy Day in LA. And then for the last several years, I was a part of a team at Facebook and Instagram and Meta called The Creative Shop, until recently Mark Zuckerberg exploded my whole team, and we're out doing fun stuff on our own now, which is kind of a blessing in disguise, to be honest. But that's my story. That's where I come from. And I love AR. In this image you see here, this is you can see the little microphone on my face. That's an AR effect I built. So wherever you are, you could feel like you're giving a TED Talk or hosting a panel at South by Southwest. You guys probably on this panel do that all the time. Or if it's been a while and you want to get back in the saddle, you can fire that up and just get it going. But I really like to play with these effects and have fun with them, and and make stuff that can entertain people while kind of opening their eyes to new technology. And I'm a creative generalist, really. In my career, I've done a lot of different stuff like TV spots, print ads, banner ads. And anybody ever do a 15K banner ad? Optimizing GIFs and stuff like that. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And I love just getting my hands dirty and building. So for the last few months, since I've had a little bit of extra free time, I've been doing a lot of building on my own. I've been trying to learn as much as I can. And what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is some of the work that I've been doing in web-based AR or mixed reality, however you want to slice it. But the project that I really want to focus on with you guys now is this thing that I made the last couple of months called the Death Star Dial-In. All right, so any Star Wars fans? I can see a couple of you guys seem like you might be Star Wars fans. Yeah, so you might remember that scene in the first Star Wars when they're getting ready to blow up the Death Star, and they have this really great meeting. I don't know where it is. It's in a conference room somewhere. It's really futuristic. And I was watching this scene with my kids recently, and I was like, in 2023, like probably somebody would have had to like dial into that meeting, on Zoom, like we're doing now or something. So, what might that have been like? Actually could have been kind of cool. That guy who had to work from home that day and couldn't be in the room, could dial in and check it out. And thinking about what we can do with mixed reality and AR and stuff, like actually could be a little bit more interesting than what we're doing here now. Like, so imagine like in this case, like you can see the video of the meeting and what's going on. They're going to blow up the Death Star. You've been on all the emails or whatever, what's happening. But in addition to that, like maybe you could also see like a 3D object floating in front of you of the Death Star or of the vehicle plans or of the plans themselves for, the attack. Like that would actually make dialing in from home like pretty cool and maybe even kind of weirdly better than being in the room. So that was kind of my idea, and I wanted to build it. And I wanted to see if I could kind of learn a few things about building in this space by doing it. By my background, I'm not a coder. I don't have an engineering background. I have some really basic HTML skills. Any Dreamweaver fans out there from the old days? So that's kind of my set. And what I discovered was that there's a lot of really great stuff and a lot of really easy ways to build. So I'll go into the tech details in a sec. But the way I think as a creative person who's working for brands and who's working for businesses is, how do I define a creative opportunity that's interesting for me as a creative person and as just a person who loves cool stuff? Where's the creative like interestingness? But then also, where's the creative stuff I can build that has a lot of value for brands and businesses? Not just cool for cool sake, but cool to really drive business. And in my creative process, what I do is I find those overlaps of coolness and business opportunity. I'll try to create an MVP demo of it just to see what's the quickest, simplest way I can build something that gets people excited about it and something they can care about. And then out of that process, derive a creative framework so that when I go to make more of these things, I can do it and kind of replicate it and get some scale out of it that way. So that's my creative process. And that's how I'm driven to make all of this stuff. Last fall, one of my last projects at Meta, we worked on this project called Spatial Fusion, which is a web-based mixed reality experience in which you can like save the galaxy by going back in time and playing with stuff. It's a really, really great experience, and it's all web-based. So if you have a Meta Quest or a Quest Pro, you can just go to this URL in the browser and have a really amazing experience in which you're using the controllers to grab things, and you're bouncing objects off of your wall, and objects are kind of staying in place. It's really, really fascinating. I think for a lot of people in the creative world, they don't quite know that this is even possible, like let alone on the web. So we wanted to build this experience to help brands and businesses and creative people understand that you can do a lot in AR and MR on the web. And that really got me thinking about what I could do with this next project. So as I start to unpack some of the potential for brands, I'm thinking about like, okay, so headset AR and MR is really amazing. Like I don't know, anybody here drive a Tesla? Like I feel like if you drive a Tesla, you're driving a car, but you kind of feel like you're driving the future. I don't know if you've had that experience. It feels like something similar, but new. And that's the way it feels to me. Like when I put on a Quest Pro and I can see the color pass through, I can see 3D objects in my space that I can touch and grab and move and hear. And that feels to me like a really big next step creatively. So I wanted to play in that space. And the mix of real and virtual objects is super powerful. And then finally for brands, it's very difficult to make like a full game that goes in the Oculus store. Like it takes a crazy amount of money. No one really wants to play a game from like, I don't know, Farmers Insurance or something. You really want to pay for that or download it? Maybe. But what brands can do is they can build really great immersive stuff on the web, and maybe you do it for a couple of minutes, or maybe you save money on your auto insurance by playing a game. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff brands like to do. And so we should take that kind of idea and build it on the web so that more brands and businesses have an opportunity to interact with people. And then, just creatively, I think this stuff is fantastic because it can really transform the way you feel about something. Like I said, like when I had these first mixed reality AR web experiences, it totally blew my mind and I was ready to build in that space. I would still like for creative people to understand that there's a lot of potential there. So those are kind of like, again, going back to the business case and the creative case, that's how I think about it. In terms of how I built the project, many of you probably use these tools. This was kind of like a whole new world for me, learning about the worlds of Glitch and A-Frame, in which you can build really simple but really powerful experiences on a very scalable, easy to use system like Glitch. The A-Frame language was simple enough for a moron like me to figure out and be able to write in. But I did get to a moment where I was like, okay, I've laid out all of my stuff in this scene, and that scene you just saw, everything was positioned, but I had no way to like make it work. And so that's where, Chat GPT really bailed me out. I've been going back and forth with a friend of mine. We were trying to hack stuff together and it wasn't working. But very simply, I was able to ask Chat GPT for some help. Like this is literally the screen grab from what I wrote. I said, please write code for a video player in A-Frame VR mode and include play pause controls and VR controller functionality. And it literally just gave it to me. That was, as you can imagine, mind blowing. Like underneath I typed in, it worked. Like I was like literally excited about that. That was not ironic. And that again was another pretty amazing experience where I put the headset on and it tracked my hands and I just pinched my finger and the video played. That was pretty mind blowing. And on the left here is the entire, that's all the code. I think it's like 180 lines of code. It's all pretty simple stuff. It's like me setting the scene and then the JavaScript below that controls the clip. And for you guys, probably you're like, oh, it's taking me like 30 seconds to do that or whatever. But for me, that was impossible to have happened until I had some help. So I'll pause there. That's really the project in a nutshell. It was really fun to work on, and I hope to do more of them. Any questions or thoughts or anything from anybody?
Thank you, Bob. What would you recommend to someone looking to get involved in the augmented reality industry? And that
first thing is to start with Spark AR.
Okay.
They make it so easy to use, and just with a little bit of work understanding like the patch editor and stuff and playing with the templates that they've built, you can kind of build anything you want. So that's where I would definitely start. And there are probably some other ones. I don't know, does Niantic have a really easy like Spark version? Maybe Joe, but like that kind of stuff, I think just for creative people who want to start making stuff and not have to spend too much time learning code or anything, it really goes a long way.
Yeah, any kind of like visual node-based editors are fantastic. Spark AR, I would say, is even more simplified than like what 8th Wall presents. But 8th Wall is really good for web development if you're like just familiar with web languages in general.
Was the Foria, the project with Foria, the spatial fusion, was that an 8th Wall project?
No, that was all built on 3JS.
Oh wow, amazing. That's a really
they were those guys. I don't know if you guys know the guys at Foria, but they're fantastic partners, great creatives, and they really just rolled up their sleeves and figured that whole thing out. It was the first of its kind, so they had a lot of work to do, but they made it work really well.
All right. Marlon wants to know how, Mario, thank you for joining us. Great having you. Marlon wants to know, how would you recommend using ChatGPT as a learning aid for a beginner learning to code AR experiences?
I would use it the same way I did. I would first Google enough to understand what question you need to ask it, and then just very simply ask it the question that you need answered and see what it says and start plugging it in. That's one of the reasons I love Glitch, is that I can very easily just pull in code and it renders immediately and I can test it right away. Like it was a very seamless process, but just to, copy and paste your way through it is the way I do it.
Josh, I would love to hear your experience or your thoughts on using ChatGPT, given you're an author of a coding book.
Yeah. So Well, technically, ChatGPT probably could have written my book, let's be honest. But it wouldn't have had quite the same personality or character, I like to think. I think that's a solid way to go about it. Yeah, I think what you have to be careful with is that ChatGPT doesn't really understand the programming languages that it's presenting to you. It sounds a lot more authoritative than it actually is, and that can lull you into a sense of false confidence at, oh, hey, this approach is a good approach. And, a lot of times it's going to be. And the way you set it up, Bob, looks, like you really handled that, change appropriately. You test, you iterate, you keep going at it until you get the results you're looking for. And I think that's great. I mean, starting by Googling the questions, I think is a perfect way to really approach that, because it's really how do you ask the questions is really how you get a good start. Yeah.
And that was, one of the result that I showed was after asking it like 100 different questions and getting a bunch of code that didn't work or half worked, and starting and stopping and starting over. And so it was a process, but it was pretty magical too.
Yeah. I think in going, in the future, as we go forward, that mid-level and junior developers are going to have a very tough time building those basic skills that you need to be able to really effectively use AI code generation. GitHub's Copilot X, I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, is basically a code GPT, and it's quite amazing. I pointed it at a source document, and it explained how it worked, and it sounded great until you plugged in the tests that it generated and said, yeah, it didn't really understand quite what it was doing there, but it's a great start for that. So, in terms of saving me time and effort, it's a huge tool for that.
And just to be clear too, I think, I work with so many businesses. I would not really apply that approach to working for a client when I needed to make sure something really worked. I would definitely call in the big guns and the professionals and have it done. But for an MVP kind of prototype, it is definitely a good way to learn a little bit.
Yeah, it's trying to spike something out. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. On a separate note, Bob, and thank you, Josh, for hopping in. So Bob, how do you feel of like the current state of marketing for brands that's going on, like on Snapchat and whatnot?
Yeah, I started my career at Facebook in 2014 doing a lot of mobile work. And I think what we learned the most was that in order to really connect with people, you need to tailor your communication for the medium. And so you need to build stuff that connects with people that's like the stuff they're there to actually see. In the old days, people went to Facebook to look at baby pictures and all kinds of stuff. So you've got to try and find a way to fit in and make sure you're not feeling like a total narc at the party. So whatever the creative challenge might be, whatever platform or place you are, whether it's TikTok or front page of the New York Times, you got to try and find a way to appeal to the audience that is there with content that they might want to see.
Do you think AR is a good medium for expressing content, or?
Oh, totally. And in fact, I think what needs to be done more in AR is less kind of like facial decoration, if you will, and more experiences that can transform the way people feel about a brand or a business. And I think that's why I love the Niantic Eighth Wall stuff, is because they're truly experiences that people can learn something or have a fun time with, or do something even with their friends. That stuff is wild. Like, that's the way creatives should be thinking more about it, is less about like, what is something I can, make myself look in a certain way, which, is cool and people love to do that. But as a brand, we should be helping people transform their mindset and be ready to maybe enter into a different kind of action with the brand.
Joe said less about what can I see and more about what can I do.
Totally. I think that's a really great way to put it. And if you start there as a creative, what can I do that will help people better understand my product or my service? You'll come up with an idea that's really fun and also helps people learn stuff.
I've been reading about Facebook doing like providing advertising within augmented reality. Do you have any thoughts on that, on how it could affect the experience?
I mean, that's how platforms work, right? They need to monetize that attention. And so I would hope that, with the wizards that they have over there building great ad products, they've always done a good job with it. I would expect that they build something that isn't too intrusive and still lets people have a good time with the reason that they're there. Like I mentioned before, you know, who knows where they'll go with it, but I'm sure they'll put users first and come up with something that will drive some value for everybody.
Awesome. And one more question: do you see a potential for headsets to drive marketing engagement in AR?
Totally. I mean, I think once headsets, and who knows how long this will take, you guys may know even better than I or have more informed opinions. But I think once we find things to do with headsets that are more than just games, it will open up a whole new world of possibility for people like me who just want to like go in and kind of play around with stuff in a lightweight way. Or maybe we'll be in some sort of future state where glasses are kind of more the norm and it becomes, you know, a wider variety of activities that people have come to expect from VR, AR, or MR.
Awesome. Thank you. Are you looking for like clients to take on currently, or are you just doing consulting or working on your own stuff?
Yeah, you know, we've spun up a little bit of a startup. It's called Verses and Valleys. I didn't mean to do a plug, but I might as well while we're here, where we're working with brands to help give metaverse strategy and help provide understanding of what they can do creatively in the space. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to take it, but thanks for that.
Yeah, could I post that Verse and Valleys? Do you have a website I could post in the chat or something?
I'll put it in the chat.
All right, that'd be great. Awesome. Thank you, Bob. It was great having you here.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Cool. We have Kevin Yu and Joey down from WearWorks next. I know Kevin's been having a little bit of issues with the share screen. If you want to give it a shot, Kevin, would be great. Let me try to you have co-host. Hey, Kevin, are you there? Oh, beautiful. So Kevin's the CEO and co-founder of WearWorks. He's gained international recognition and awards for pushing sustainability, design, and technical innovations forward, winning competitions such as the Bauhaus Award, German Design Award, National Science Foundation, and more. He focuses on social and positive impacts at large scale, yet working closely with the end user to generate long-lasting, meaningful products. He has patented several technologies and designs, which includes a novel wearable and software technology for precise navigation, utilizing only the sense of touch. Thank you, Kevin, for being with us. Let's see. Hey, Kevin, we don't hear you. Let me.
How's this? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds good. And I see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I might have to mute it on this. Okay. So, how's it going, guys? My computer is also getting a little crazy because I have a little too many tabs open. But my name is Kevin Yu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WearWorks. I have been developing a haptic technology company for the last 8 years, and we've been very fortunate enough to make history utilizing our technology to guide the first blind runner in the New York City Marathon without any sighted assistance. So with that, we started getting some recognition, and I'm just going to go down of how this works and how it can be applied into a lot of VR AR systems as well. In the beginning, we have had a lot of really incredible feedback from individuals that were starting VR companies, and this is like majorly glitchy. Sorry about this. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so with the VR systems, and kind of going back to what Pokemon Go was, right? It's really like this virtual world where you get to, kind of get around and experience the world in different ways. And a lot of distractions happen with visual and audio cues that really kind of distract you from the real world. So haptic navigation is, of course, accessible, and it has started from the way that my friend has become blind. It told me that Google Maps, Apple Maps were not accessible enough to get around with confidence. So that's why I started developing the technology. And what we realized, the haptic development is very difficult, and there was no really big outputs that could do the haptics correctly. So what I started to really develop was, in the beginning, was a wearable device that was really built on haptics itself, and then we created SDKs that were able to integrate with other platforms and to easily integrate our haptic navigation as well as other things. So we have a wearable device that is really an output of haptic, which is better than anything else in the market, Haptic Lab, which is the SDKs that we create in order to integrate with other platforms. And specifically the patented IP and the core value that we've been really generating is Haptic Nav, the one that made history, guiding the first blind runner. And now we're integrating with Google Maps and Apple Maps, which is a huge portion of it. But we went through Google Accelerator, and we're working really hard to kind of bring this to the masses. So let me kind of like explain to you how this works. So first of all, these are blind individuals that have all been very much tied with WearWorks for the last almost a decade. And the intuitivity of the technology is what makes it really, really important. And by obviously Simon Wheatcroft running the first marathon, all the way to a Paralympic athletes training independently with it, to just general getting around town without having to have a guide or audio feedback that's still very confusing and the only way to do it. So it's pretty much a simple app. It provides you feedback and it gently increases in vibration as you deviate off the pathway. And then it pretty much stops when you're facing the right direction. So it's like a hot and cold system, and it pretty much increases in amplitude and decreases in amplitude based on your orientation. And that's it. We own Haptic Compass, and that's really the main core of the simple intuitive technology that everybody can get really use. Like when we went to South by Southwest this year, we had a lot of elders, a lot of children, a lot of sighted individuals getting around, utilizing our technology. South by also invested in us. We're going to be doing a huge proposal and a pilot with them next year, where everybody can now use haptics to get around to whatever events, right? Google, Dropbox, IBM, whatever. And now it becomes a fully inclusive space. So we've talked to Disney, we've talked to, obviously we worked with Google. We have 2 pilots going with Google right now. And the main thing that we really want to do is just to make the world more accessible, getting around to places, airports, indoor nav, exterior nav, whatever it could be, just 100% inclusive, utilizing the sense of touch. It's been a very untapped market, no pun intended, but it definitely has been hard to break through. And it took effort from our side in a lot of different ways, because we had to create the hardware, and now we're going into more of the SaaS model. So I'll kind of go into like what the hardware play is, that we're kind of fading away. And then the SaaS model that we're now going into for SDK implementation, integration, and the pilots that we're doing with South by, Google Maps, and so on. So the hardware itself, I think for this conversation, right, VR, AR, there's a lot of computer vision. There's a lot of technology in the back end side. We sell these on Amazon right now, and it's mainly for athletes. So athletes don't have to look at the phone and don't have to hold something while they're going around, especially blind athletes. They can now feel the vibration on the device, and then when it stops, that's the right direction, and then it begins to gradually vibrate, getting stronger and stronger. So it's a really intuitive tool, and obviously it can be implemented into multitude of ways to communicate information in VR or AR. But in VR, like gaming, just a simple mini map, and you can get around simply by virtual navigation. Or you can also have tactile sensations that are much more advanced through having 2 different wearables on your wrist in a pretty cost-effective manner. So that's kind of where we see a lot of this going. And I'll kind of go into the Haptic Lab. So Haptic Lab is really core of the business model. It is where we produce and create sandbox for a lot of different new sensations, really, that has never been expressed through haptics, because we've been quite limited by this, right? Our cell phone vibrates and the iWatch vibrates, but it has pretty significant limitations on its amplitude and its and its barriers of haptic engine. So you can actually try this right now. You can download Haptic Nav on the App Store for free. We want to make it free for our audiences and our customers, because we work with a lot of blind and visually impaired communities and individuals, and we don't want the price to be a big major point. So you can download Haptic Nav. It would be great for you guys to give it a try, feel it for yourself, rotate the phone, feel the haptic change, understand the orientation. And for Apple Watch, we also have Apple Watch integration now, so you can rotate the Apple Watch as well, or you can purchase the waistband in order to do that. So yeah, so Haptic Lab, oh my God, my computer is ridiculous. Sorry, I don't know why it's like heated up today. I know, Andy, you've been going through the same thing, right? So with Haptic Lab, we truly focus on the creation of multitude of different haptics. So we focus on haptic health, haptic gaming, haptic alerts, and what you have just experienced is haptic nav. So with this, we really want to tap into every single industry and be the forefront tier of haptics. And this is a Discovery Channel documentary that was created when we made history by Guiding the First Blind Runner. And we have a TED Talk with 2 million views, you name it, front page in New York Times. So haptic technology really kind of emerged in a later stage as visual and audio technology really advanced very rapidly. And it kind of like became really stagnant as just like a notification, right? So what we're doing is kind of pushing the boundaries here, pushing the barrier. And this is kind of what, I hope this video plays smoothly for you guys. Well, I'll try. So these are some footages of me and Simon training at the marathon. The Discovery Channel, created this virtual world, how you feel the sensation, right? So as you deviate these virtual corridor, as we call it, as you deviate towards the walls, it will vibrate and get stronger and stronger, kind of like understanding visually what it's doing. Yeah, no, it's just too, I don't know what's going on. But you kind of get the idea. The virtual corridor is a way to kind of literally understand what the haptic sensation is. And we can implement that directly into the VR systems to create like a game-like experience, or to guide people in it, or even have visually impaired users to use VR in a different way, which is what Joey's going to talk about. So I invited Joey here today because he is the board member of Lighthouse Central Florida. He is visually impaired. He's been working with me for the past almost 10 years as well. And he's working on a VR system for accessibility use cases, and we apply the haptics to it. And because we've been working together for a long time, this kind of all just kind of made sense. One last thing I'll share with you guys in this, and please feel free to collect your questions. Let's see. Is really the rudimentary sector that we're in terms of currently right now. 8 years ago, when I went to visit these VR companies, they were dabbling around so many conceptual ideas, and everything was very exciting. And then there was this, this kind of stagnant moment for also VR too, and AR. I tried on all the Oculuses, I tried on all the, the prototypes and stuff through Google Glass and so on, but nothing really tacked on very well with haptics as a third product. So this is something that we can potentially work on together. If you guys have a crazy cool VR concept idea, we'll love to, apply the haptics to it, and to give you guys the SDKs to implement and integrate, provide developers to really build haptics in a new way. And I already messaged you, Joe. I think it's a really fantastic, and when Pokemon Go first really came out, that's around the time that I started developing the haptic navigation. And it was just a no-brainer, right? Because you're looking at this thing and you're trying to like go to somewhere. It's kind of like, you're already doing this all the time. Now you're applying a further, danger on top of that, and a gamified system and so on. So if you could create a haptic navigation that could easily get you around, and then be able to interact with the game when the Pokemon appears, that is, for me, has always been a no-brainer. So I think this could be a really amazing time if you guys want to elevate the sensation of haptics in it, or kind of make it more gamified, or make it more fun and safe. In the end of the day, it's more practical and safe. That's the whole reason why we built this tool. So that's all it is from my side. And I'll save some time for Joey to hop on and to kind of talk about what he's been working on the VR side for accessibility, and how he wants to apply haptics to it for different things, including navigation. Joey, are you on here?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks, Kev. Yeah, so as Kevin mentioned, I've been working with him for the better part of the past 8 years or so. And what my area of expertise and focus on is really using immersive technology, so AR, VR, to really move the needle for accessibility in those technologies, whether it be using those modalities to integrate more accessibility for people who are visually impaired, or to think about accessibility throughout the design process. As Kevin has mentioned, using haptics as an accessibility tool in virtual reality has kind of opened up a lot of doors. So one thing that we are focusing on my company is actually navigating individuals who are visually impaired throughout the whole spectrum, whether it be partly sighted all the way to full blindness, allowing people to access virtual reality and navigate virtual worlds by creating virtual accessibility modalities. So some things that we have worked on, knowing Kevin, obviously haptics was the first thing that came to mind, and we wanted to use haptics and vibration to really help the user orientate themselves to the virtual world. So similar to how Kevin described haptic nav in the virtual corridor, we've kind of taken that similar model and began integrating it into virtual reality. Whereas you have destinations, you're trying to go from point A to point B, we can integrate the exact same model that Kevin has used with WearWorks, as well as being able to try out new modalities and new styles of vibration and new styles of accessibility. So a couple of things we've really liked is the idea to almost use your handheld controller as a form of point and shoot and receive the feedback on how far away you are from an object. For example, if you're standing next to a wall, the intensity of vibration will indicate how close or far you are, your proximity to the wall in that location. So haptics has been a great source of accessibility for allowing for navigation. However, so has audio cues, 3D sound, and excuse me, as well as sonar. We've been experimenting with different modalities and trying to see what works and what can be expanded on. So just to kind of bring it all together, what I would really encourage everybody is to think of accessibility in our projects, right? And think about how can we use augmented reality to improve the lives of people who are visually impaired or people with disabilities. I know often people think AR, VR, and kind of exclude people who are visually impaired because you don't have the visual component. However, there is a whole world of opportunities to actually integrate the accessibility within those technologies to include and open up a whole new world of users to those different modalities. So
Really
that's
cool.
just some of the stuff on my end. Yeah, so really excited to hear about everything you guys have worked on today, and just kind of, it excites me on what's coming out, and then how we can then utilize it to improve the lives of people with disabilities.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Andy.
How does one learn what the different signals are that are communicated to their wrist or something? Like, is that like, it's like a unique language to your platform, or are there some like universally known vibrations?
Yes. Yeah, great question. So I'll give a really awesome story. I was just at this event called CSUN, which is one of the biggest accessibility like events they say in the world. I met Stevie Wonder, and we had like about a 30-minute conversation. He used the haptic nav. He loved it. He walked around with it. And the way that it usually happens, I pull up the haptic nav on my phone. You guys can all try it out. As I said, it's free in the app, so you don't have to log in. And then the phone would vibrate itself. It's like a vibration that you never really felt on a phone before, because we had to unlock a haptic engine through iOS. A long time ago for the marathon, we had to really kind of push Apple to do this. They sponsored us for the marathon and so on. So we really had to break through the haptic engine to make it a smooth vibration transition, right? And then that's what we couldn't do with any other wearable devices. Really, there was nothing out there, but even with Apple Watch, we still can't do that. So this is still the best way to go. So the smooth, gradual amplitude going up is kind of like the magic sauce, because when it's vibrating weaker and weaker, you know that you're rotating in the right direction. And when it stops, you're in the right direction. And it will give you this like heartbeat, like a pulse every 2 seconds to let you know that you're on the right track. So this is the haptic nav, kind of full experience. Again, please give it a try on the Apple Store, haptic nav. And so when I gave this to Stevie Wonder, he literally took it. I said, spin around and stop when you face the right direction. He did it, got it right away. And then that's pretty much how it works for blind, sighted, kids, parents, you name it. Instead of like calling your kids and saying, where are you? And kids saying like, I'm next to Mickey Mouse in Disneyland. Now they can just like, orient themselves, get to where you are, point A to point B using haptics. Super, super simple. So it is like what I call haptic gesture. It's supposed to be very intuitive. It shouldn't be like a learning lesson, like a Morse code. That's why I think Braille is a dying language, right? Less than 1% of people who are blind actually know Braille. So we're trying to create a new haptic language And we're starting with navigation, and we're starting with haptic health, meditations, breathing, timing. These are things that we can just adapt to quite intuitively. Yeah.
Something I would add to that, and Kevin is totally right, is as users, we're actually very familiar with discerning different types of vibrational messaging already. The example I like to use is your phone will give you 6 different types of vibration, one for an email, one for a text message, and one for a Snapchat notification. And we are, as users, have become very knowing of what those vibrations mean and what they're indicating. So the ability to kind of integrate haptics as a language is actually a much quicker pickup for the user than what might be imagined.
Awesome. That sounds really great. And is it all navigation based, or do you have like an internal laser scanner that can track the room around you for objects in close proximity?
Yeah, another great question. So for the marathon, I had to create a proximity sensor that's on the chest, which detected objects about 10 feet out in order for Simon to run and avoid people. Luckily in marathons, right, it's usually people are on the obstacles and they usually move, or you can move around them. So the proximity detection worked out pretty well for, and you're also going in one direction. So that worked out pretty well. And he used the waistband in order to navigate and get around for orientation. So one tool was for navigation, one tool was for proximity detection. However, the proximity detection, I made a couple of different tool bases around it. And when I went to the NFB, the National Federation of the Blind, which is the biggest organization in the US for blind communities, they specifically told me after testing all the prototypes and products that we should pursue macro scale navigation. We shouldn't be tied down by proximity detection, like ultrasonic, utilizing it for haptics, because that is a very specific product. Our product can be used by really anybody. It can be used by children, sighted individuals, tourism, single travelers, it could hotel rooms, whatever, indoor nav. So that's why we want to stick to the mass scale adaptability of this. Google Maps, integrated into Google Maps, huge opportunity for us that we're working towards. And beyond that, really, we can just keep developing haptics, right? We're a haptic technology company that we want to really stick to that and create the best haptics possible. So this allowed us to do that without being spread out too thin.
Awesome. That sounds great. And then last question, how do you view WearWorks specifically being integrated into an augmented reality software or hardware platform?
Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's awesome. I mean, I thought it was time like years ago, and then things didn't really boom as fast as I thought it would. But again, that's just the way it is. I thought haptic was also going to be like a caught on thing, by now. But Glass Onion mentioned haptic navigation. I was like, oh, finally, it's becoming mainstream. But no, things just take a lot of time for the mass population to really take it and say, oh wow, of course, haptic navigation, like duh. And for us to spread that out does require time, as so does VR. And to be able to say for a day, 30 minutes, I'm going to be in a virtual reality world, and to do XYZ with it, that still requires a bit of like adaptation. So I think that part is coming. Obviously, Meta had a huge hand in it. I think it requires a bit of touch, perhaps, or something more personal to feel like you are really like in the virtual space and not super derived away from reality. So maybe that's where we may be feeling that or not feeling that. And with AR, clearly there's a huge potential of adapting haptics to it, even if it's just through a dumb phone and haptics through a smartphone. It's totally doable. It doesn't have to be a wearable device customized to haptics like ours. You can really tap into that and just be utilizing it differently. So,
Or 2 questions as I launch a poll. Have you looked into making haptic pixels and grouping into arrays for 2/3D haptic experiences?
we have. And these are things that, that happened in the past that we want to bring back up. We've worked with a lot of different haptics in the past with piezos, multitude of haptics in a band. I come from a design background, industrial design background, from engineering side as well. So I used to produce a lot of prototypes that could do really extreme haptic expressions. And then we had to kind of slim down for production, slim down for margins and cost for the time being. And then now we're adapting a lot into the software hardware that is finally coming out that they can play our tunes. So I think we may go back to that if the haptic hardware world doesn't really keep progressing enough. But I feel like it will, and I think we may have to or we can keep on doing integration to adapt into that instead of
Thank
creating
you.
a hardware. Yeah.
And one more from Ken, and I want to open to the other speakers. The question from Ken is, does it vibrate when you are in the, this keeps on popping up. Does it vibrate when you are in the right direction or wrong direction? Just answer that briefly because we have to move on.
Yeah, you can toggle it both ways. We literally have a patent that anything that vibrates according to your orientation. So literally a haptic compass. We have controlled and owned the haptic compass. So we can toggle it either way. But the way that I've designed it for the iOS experience for haptic nav is that there is no vibration when you're going the right direction. Saves battery and it's better.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. Good having you.
Thanks. Thank you guys. Good to be here.
Josh Elster, what do you feel about Eighth Wall, and do you think is Babylon like an alternative to that?
I see it being complementary. I think that something that's missing right now in web standards, I think there's some in WebXR is haptic type specifications. I think there's some ARIA specifications, but they're not easy to use, and they're not, well, for the lack of a better word, accessible to developers very much. So I think having something like what you've developed there with the SDK and being able to use that in the web browser would really open up a lot of experiences and potential capabilities too for 3D developers on the web.
Cool. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, Bob, do you have any thoughts on the? And we'll close in a minute here, but since all the speakers are here, I'll just ask some closing questions. Do you have any thoughts on Snap's new latest initiative, the RS platform? I was wondering if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, it's super smart. I mean, I think a lot of times what those platforms need to do is kind of what I was saying earlier, is moving into a scale mindset that can kind of go deeper than just like simple face filters and stuff, and find a way for businesses to adopt those products at scale. I haven't really seen Meta do anything like that, but it's super important to be able to get products and product feeds and images and take all those assets that already exist and find ways to make them real and let them inhabit people's spaces. Like that's an enormous opportunity for business and for ads and all that stuff that probably Snap is thinking. So I think it's great.
Nice work. Nice, thank you. And Joe, appreciate all your insight on the Niantic stuff. Really cool to hear about it. Eighth Wall is great. You know, I heard something from a student at NYU. They wish there was like student pricing so they could use it on a project. Is that something that you have planned? I know the pricing's like, it can get a little expensive on Eighth Wall.
Recently, I know they did add a kind of like starter tier for really small teams. I think up to like 3 people. That's like $9.99 a month. So I would consider that kind of like trying to be more student friendly, along with like a 2-week like free trial. But yeah, I think there's it is a commercial product, and so definitely geared towards kind of a commercialized model there.
Is that more for like marketing experiences and whatnot, sort of what Bob was sharing about? Like, is it in that realm?
For the priced tiers?
Or just Eighth Wall in general, like the usage of it?
Eighth Wall, I mean, the use cases that you see are typically around like marketing campaigns, kind of short form AR content. But what I'm trying to encourage developers to think about is, hey, if you have like a full size, like robust, Unity driven application, how do you get users in there to download your app in the first place? And that's where Eighth Wall kind of can come in a really beautiful way for like organic discovery.
Is it part of Lightship Eighth Wall, or is it a separate entity?
We consider them part of like a related tech stack suite, you know, if you will. They're separate technologies, of course, but they're combined through the VPS backend database of like location services. So some connective tissue between the two.
Amazing.
But you're running native hardware though, even with the Unity integration on whatever device it is, you're using the native hardware stack there for AR purposes on Eighth Wall.
For eighth wall is like, it's definitely a different team than me, so I'm not as
sorry.
familiar with like how they're actually running like on the hardware, but they do have what they call metaversal deployment as a way for them to deploy web AR experiences on like mobile handheld AR as well wearables, and then looking future forward, kind of like more towards wearable outdoor AR hardware as well.
Yeah, because there's lots of limitations on what you can do with like Apple's hardware, for instance, without getting into the actual hardware SDKs. Yeah.
Awesome.
Gets messy real fast. Yeah.
Yeah, sure does.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you all speakers for joining tonight. Thank you participants for listening. Appreciate all the presentations and wishing you all a great night. Feel free to stick around for a few more minutes or hop off, and we'll be uploading the recording on YouTube so you can take a look. So appreciate it. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'll be in touch. Bye, guys.
Later.
Thanks, Andy. It was good to meet you.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Take care.
See you later. Yo, Josh,
Hey,
great stuff. I
thanks,
wrote
man.
you, it's always nice having you there.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me too. Appreciate you allowing me to chime in my 2 cents every once in a while too.
No, I wish you joined for longer. Yeah,
I didn't
whenever
want to be
you
disruptive.
whenever you want to join and share, just let me know.
Awesome, man. Yeah, appreciate that. I'll check out the schedule on there and get them on my calendar.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you. You said is there a new version coming out of the book?
there
or-
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, April 20th, I think, is the new scheduled release date of when the team wants to get that out. But Babylon JS 6.0 is set for release. It's not going to be a quantum leap. It's not as much of a change as from 4.0 to 5.0 was. But there's one really big feature that the team has been teasing out. If you're following them on Twitter, I can't tell you what it is, obviously, because that would ruin the surprise. But let me tell you, it's a pretty cool surprise. You may be able to guess it if you look at the Babylon JS Twitter feed. They've been throwing out some pretty strong hints. Is the handle there on Twitter? But yeah. So it's an incremental update. There's some cool things with iridescence. There's FBX support. A lot of real good developer things, plus user experience things for like the node material editor, so you can do visual node updates. There's a lot
Right,
more
shaders in Babylon.
Oh yes.
Or-
Oh yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
node material editor is a visual shader, designer, just like you might use in Blender. I mean, Blender obviously being a desktop app, you can do more, but you get the idea. You can do shaders, post processes, procedural textures, things like that, and then incorporate them directly into your work through the playground.
You could do like what is it, like GLSL scripting?
Yeah, it's okay. I always get GL. Yeah, we're looking for the web GL one. So yeah, GLSL, and what the web GPU one is. The latest one is
I don't know.
GWLSL or something. There's another.
I've been getting into the HLSL stuff on Unity.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
it's exciting what
Yeah.
you can do with that sort of stuff. HLSL and the GLSL are going to be very similar in terms of like what you do with them. The syntax is a little bit different between the two, and it's not a one-for-one conversion, but it's fairly straightforward to convert between the two. So if you see an example in one, you can kind of work through it to convert it over. And there's tools, I think, too.
Does Babylon could communicate directly with a GPU, even though it's
Sure does. Yeah, that's uses WebGL or WebGPU to directly do the GPU work. So when you load up a scene in Babylon and say you use just one of the built-in shader materials, it will pass those shaders directly to the GPU. Any particles,
wow.
your meshes, all the stuff that you might expect. Yeah, that's what makes it really exciting. It's just JavaScript, but you're still interacting directly with the GPU.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Good. Keep on sharing about this stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah, I find it really exciting what people are able to build with this stuff. just going through those threads, it just the creativity that people have is really
What
awesome.
could you share, like, do you have a thread I could look at that has like examples?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's actually called, well, there's a latest demos and projects section, but then there's also a, well, in there, I guess you could find there's the community submissions is what I posted in the chat earlier, where people submitted their 6.0 video submissions or playgrounds. So that's kind of, people, trotting out their A game, as it were. But also in that demos and projects section, there's well, there's a lot of individual ones too, but the playground examples is the one I'm looking for right now, the URL to that. And that has people just posting the Babylon.js playground. And that's a web-based runtime execution coding environment all at the same time. So you can code on one side and see the rendering on the other side type of deal.
Wow, very, very, very neat. Awesome. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Thanks for hopping on as always.
Yeah, anyone else have any
Sweet.
questions? Feel free to reach out or contact me. And thanks again, Andy, for hosting.
Thank you. All right.
Cheers, folks.
Later.